Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to talk about how to plan your breakup. I recently had a story sent in that I didn't read because it was a private one, and we actually did a live coaching session. And someone was planning to break up. So basically, when you want to break up, when you've been in a long term relationship, someone's checked out, things aren't working out, someone doesn't look the same. The list goes on. And what happens a lot of times, people don't instantly break up because not everyone's impulsive and that ballsy to just go, you know what, I'm not feeling this, I'm out. A lot of times, what they do is they complain and complain and complain and blame and refuse the call to action, right? I've been there before myself. It's never fun. You worry about the other person crying and being sad and upset. You worry about the other person never talking to you again. The list goes on. And then there's the part where during the week, you guys have some good intimacy and you're back on deck. You're back in the relationship. So, how to plan your breakup? Let's talk about this for a minute, right? First of all, number one, know your reasons. This is very important because a lot of times you're impulsively just going around telling everyone your problems, your stories. You don't sit down and go, "What's my real problem here? Let me bullet point this." So it's financial. They never have money. Um, the fact that they never can hold down a job. I don't like the way they look anymore. Just be really honest with yourself. You can do a little journaling session on this and just bullet point it. And you might be surprised. You might come up with five, six, seven things. It might just be one thing, but there's something there that you're not seeing. So recently, when I was doing this coaching with this client of mine about specifically why he wanted to break up, there was reasons of she wasn't cleanly enough. I know people might think that's funny, but there's people out there, their hygiene's not up to par. And after being with them for a long time, if their garbage is overflowing, the bathroom's disgusting, and that's not how you do things, you're in the relationship, it can become a problem. The other thing is he had major issues with her keeping her word on time. So he was one of those people that, you said we were going to meet at this time, but you didn't show up, or you were 30 minutes late, 40 minutes late. A lot of times in the beginning of the relationship, this is okay, right? People are going, all right, fine, we'll meet later. But then a year, 2 years into it, it gets old, especially if the other person is someone that's always on time. His other reasons were, and it was quite frank, I'm just not as attracted to her. I think I can do better. That's something people don't tell their friends and family a lot, but it's a real thing. You got into a relationship with someone that you're not highly attracted to. It's gotten deeper and deeper, but over time, you're just like, the attraction's never grown. The unconditional love's not there. It's a real thing. So write out your reasons. And then I'd add to that, and I'm going to get to a breakup story that was sent in today. Write out your story of your breakup. So if you go to writemac.com, I have some details about that. Um, and what you can do is when you write out the story, almost write it out as in third person or or yourself first person, one of the two. But read it as come back to it and read it as a stranger, and you'll be surprised. You'll go, "Oh wow, I've been dealing with a lot of shit here," right? So you'll see an example of how I unpack this story and how a story comes in. And an authentic story doesn't have to have good grammar. Okay. Doesn't have to have anything like it just comes out. How did this relationship start? How has it prevailed? What are some of the things that went on? Et cetera, et cetera. Number two, don't ask too many people for advice on this. I fell victim to this. I'm highly social. I got a lot of friends and know a lot of people. And you're in the middle of a breakup and you start telling people like, thinking about breaking up, this, that, and the other. Because the people that you're talking to, they have different relationships. They have different experiences. So they're just going to impose those relationships and experiences onto you. And a lot of times it's not always the best advice. So what I would say is when you're really thinking about breaking up and you get to that point and it's really riding on your mind, find a trusted individual whose life you admire, whose advice you value, and whose relationships uh, their past relationships are something that you say, wow, this person had some healthy relationships, right? The other thing I would say is talk to a coach like myself. Like I said, I just recently talked to someone. Everyone comes to me after the breakup a lot of times, but I would say if you're really considering breaking up, that it's a great time to kind of plan it out. And that sounds, people might think like, wow, that's psychopath. You're going to plan your breakup. No, it's actually very smart. Okay. Because you're coming up with your reasons. You're also coming up with what you're going to do afterwards, which is a big deal, and how you're going to break the news. Okay. Number three, know your living situation post breakup. This is absolutely huge. Okay. So, and this will be touched on in the story I'm going to go through. If you are living together, this is why it's so difficult to break up when you live together. I'd say that people that live together stay together much longer. And the reason for that, when I say they stay together much longer and they stay in bad relationships much longer or dead relationships, when I mean dead, it's like someone's checked out, the attraction's not there, they're not hooking up, they're in separate rooms. People will stay in those relationships because someone's financially dependent on the other person. So just think about that a minute. There's always someone that's the breadwinner or makes more money or kind of controls the house. Okay. And that doesn't even mean you own the house. It could be that the rent's in your name. It could be you're living at a relative's house and it's your relative, so you control that narrative. Um, but this is what keeps people in relationships that are not good longer. It also is what keeps people from breaking up. So a lot of times people will break up a lot easier when they know the other person can be on their feet on their own, right? So what happens is the other person will throw these guilt nets like, "Oh, I don't have any money. Oh, I have no place to go. Oh, I have no friends." And that might be true in some cases. But who did that? Who's accountable or responsible for that? You're an adult at this point. We're talking about adult relationships, and you're blaming that on your partner that it's their responsibility for you to have self-reliance and self-respect. Think about that for a minute. So know your living situation post breakup. I'd add to that if you're in a situation where you don't want to kick someone out, right? Because you're like, I don't know where they're going to go. You can plan for that. You might be like, well, you know what? I'll give you $1,000 or $2,000 to move out, and you can pay me back later. If you're in a bad relationship, it might be a hell of an investment to get that person out of the house, because what happens is that person, especially the type that is pity seeking or victim based, they will dig in on that deeper because they don't want to lose the room and board. Okay. It doesn't even mean you're 100% financially backing them, but you're controlling their house. This goes back to primal things for human beings. Think about this for a minute. So it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna break up, but they don't have anywhere to go, they don't have a car, or they don't make enough money to take care of themselves. So you might have to come up with that money, and like people are probably going nuts right now, going, I wouldn't give them money. Not telling you you have to. I'm just telling you when you plan this, because what happens over time is they'll create new guilt nets. They'll create new reasons for you to feel sorry for them, such as I don't want to live is a big one, or I'll never talk to you again. They'll create all these things to manipulate you to stay in there because human beings like to be safe, they like to be secure, and if it's easy and it's comfortable, they don't want to mess with that. That's just how it is. So once you start pulling away from them and they notice it subconsciously, they wouldn't say this, they start getting really desperate to keep your attention because they also want to keep their home. They also want to keep if you're taking care of them financially. So it's a double-edged sword. So in that particular situation, it's doable, but it takes more planning and it takes more support because the manipulation they're going to run on you is going to be out of desperation with nothing to lose, and you everything to gain in their perspective, because they're like, well, you have the house, you have the money, it's not fair. And they'll never take accountability and responsibility for that because they've grooved into it, especially if you've been together 2 or 3 years. These particular relationships, you've got to get out of them, because if you continue to do that, that's the narrative that'll be there for 5, 10 years. Now, on the flip side, if you're the type of person that has a lot of money, and I've had clients like this, and they're like, no problem, I'll give you 10 grand to move out. That person will move out. They just probably will come back to you for money again. Number four, plan a trip or even move soon after the breakup to catch your breath. Now, not everyone has this available to them financially or for work, but this is probably the best piece of advice I can give you post breakup. So, Not everyone has the ability to move. Like I said, if you do, if you want the quickest way out of the breakup blues, out of that really uncomfortable feeling, if you move to a new city, a new town, a new area, a new state, a new country, you literally, as a human being, have to learn everything over again. If you stay in the same house that you live together, there's a lot of triggers. There's a lot of times where you feel like that room's almost ghostly empty. And that's tough. So if you can't move, which not everyone can, that's the extreme case. But if you've always wanted to move, this would be the time to do it. The other thing to that is plan a trip. I'm going to go on a 1 week, I'm going to go on a weekend. Just get away for a little while to catch your breath, whether that's visiting a friend or family member or just going on a solo trip. Go 2 or 3 days on your own. Just get away from your home and your local places that you used to hang out with your ex and just get away. Okay. So plan that out and plan a trip that you want to go to, whether that's on the road or a flight. This is probably one of the biggest things that people wouldn't think about doing. And I'm not even saying plan a trip to go hook up with other people or, feel yourself because you're being single and live your best life. No, I'm telling you to go on some kind of interesting trip to get away, to catch your breath. The extreme version of this is to move somewhere else if it's always been on deck, and that will alleviate a lot of the breakup issues because there's nothing worse. Your mind associates with certain areas and places. And so when you run into that ice cream shop that you had your first date, you literally melt, no pun intended. You literally melt into that situation. You're like, oh my God, I miss them so much. Where when you live or you're in a new area, that doesn't happen. Okay. Number 5, if your current partner is a pity seeker, okay, stay in no contact. Stay away from guilt nets because what they'll do, they know your buttons. So they'll try for pity. If that doesn't work, then they'll go for guilt. If that doesn't work, they might go for vengeful things. Anything to get your attention because they're desperate. Now, desperate individuals that are your exes, they're really hard to deal with. The number one thing you need to do is not associate with them because they're going to do things to win. These are the types of people that I'm going to break up with you. They've told you this 5 or 6 times, but they never break up. They never leave. So in that particular case, these are the types of people you need to plan for a strong line of no contact because they're master manipulators. Okay. And the way they manipulate is pity or guilt. And it's really hard because you'll feel sorry for them, you'll take them back. And then I've been in this situation before years back in a relationship. You take them back, they say sorry, they do everything like that. You want to go for a second chance, and the wheel starts again, and they do the same exact thing. And they got you back with guilt and sorrow and pity. And the thing is, that's not attractive. It's not good for a strong, sustainable relationship. Right. So, number 6, be ready for any character attacks. Okay, so post breakup, people hurting, they're upset, they've taken things personal. Sometimes in the beginning, they're like, "Oh, I wish you all the best," and then anger sets in 2 or 3 weeks later, and they take a cheap shot at the kneecaps. Once you break up, you don't have to explain yourself again day after day. So if you've been in a situation that's a quote unquote toxic relationship, and you are always answering to them, "Oh, you did this to me, you did that to me." Once you break up, you put a thick boundary around yourself and go, you know what? I'm just not even going to address this anymore. These accusations about me being sleazy or me being a liar, any accusations that haven't been true, once you break up, you cut off that line of communication. You're not even going to go there. And I've often told people a good example of this is when you deal with people and they say something that's just not true about you, but you entertain it, you actually give that thing power. So if someone was to call you a chair, you'd go, I'm not a chair. You wouldn't even address it. You think the person's nuts, right? If someone calls you a name that you don't associate with, don't associate with it. Because once you get in that snake pit, they got you. So if you have someone like that makes these accusations or makes you feel like you're a bad person or makes you feel like you're questioning your reality or your identity, you think of yourself like, I'm a pretty honest guy. I think I'm a pretty good partner, but you're constantly getting accused of being a bad one. Once you break up, don't get back into that push and pull. Be ready to just cut them off. Okay. Because you need to take maybe a month, 3, 4 weeks to get away from that to realize, oh my God, this is so relieving not hearing all these shots fired against my character. Okay, so number 8. Excuse me, number 7. If they threaten to never talk to you again, say no problem. Okay, so during the breakup, they're going to go, "Oh, I'll never talk to you again," if they're really extreme. Say, "No problem. If you want to talk to me, you can. I'm not going to put that barrier up." If they say, be prepared for some of these things. I can't believe you did this to me. I can't believe you never, like you had this plan the whole time. You don't care about me. Be ready for those kinds of things and what you're going to say. So you might say something like, look, it hasn't been good for a long time and I'm just not happy and it's not personal and I care about you. Have something written out in your head to prepare for that. If they're the type that are, like I said, pity seekers, guilt nets, blameful, be prepared for an onslaught of things that they're going to try to make you feel guilty. But on the flip side, that's not love. That's not a good relationship. And that's why you're breaking up. So when they come with that, you don't need to fight. You can just pull the chair out from under them in that situation and go, look, I'm sorry you feel that way, but it's time. We haven't been good for a long time. This isn't working right now. What are we doing here? I don't want to continue to make up to break up. You can, and then if they throw a shot at you, go, look, if that's how you feel, thank you for your opinion. You've told me that before and I don't agree. You can always come back to that with people with opinions. Well, that's your opinion. Fine. Don't engage. Don't defend yourself. This is one of those things. You're declaring I'm ready to break up. Okay. If you get involved in that, they got you where they want you and they got you feeling sorry for them. Now, some people might be going, wow, that's really heartless that you don't. It's not heartless. It's going to be tough. But if you prepare going into the breakup of how you're going to handle that, okay? The hardest one, and we're going to talk about that in this upcoming story. The hardest one is when someone lives with you and they depend on you financially, especially when it's a male. And they're just going to throw in your face that, like, where am I going to go? I have no family or friends. What am I going to do? No one cares about me. They're really just trying to secure their residence. And that's a tough position to be in. And there's things when you plan the breakup that you can go, listen, I can give you some money right now. They might reject that. You could say, look, you could have the place for the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to be away. I just need to be away. I want you to be out in 2 weeks. You can have plans to that. Or you can say, look, I'm gonna be out of the house the next few weeks. You can move out if they live with you and you control the house. That's why it's really hard because if you control the house, it's hard to kick people out. It's probably one of the hardest ones to do. The other end of that is that if you live there and you guys maybe share rent or a house payment, you can move out. And if they're like, well, what about the bills? Go, look, just give me a week and I'll address it. But any bills that come up, I'll split it with you fairly 50-50. Okay. Prepare for that. Now, number 8, if you can't plan a trip or move, feel free to stay with someone close to you for the first few weeks. This is big. Okay, don't let your pride get in the way. If you have someone that's a family relative, a friend or family member, okay, that you respect and cares about you and loves you, give them the opportunity to be there for you. And it doesn't mean they have to give you breakup advice. You just need to have someone there to lick your wounds. And that could be your mother, your grandparent, that could be your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, or it could be just a really good friend. Now, you don't have to stay there for a few weeks. Maybe that's not an option, but spend more time with them. Go over there for dinner, sleep over. You can lean on them for a little bit, not necessarily too much, but you can lean on them for those first couple of weeks. It's gonna be really hard. So if you don't have a place that you can go on a trip or move away or do those things, stay with a friend or family member and spend more time with them during that time. Number 9, get a meditative practice. So church or temple, whatever religion you are, and let's just say you were like, oh, I'm not that devout anymore, or this or that. Just go enter a place like that is calming and relaxing, and pray for yourself and pray for the other individual possibly. The other thing you can do is just solo walks. Walking is so good for you. It's so good for the mind. It's bilateral stimulation. Long drives. So if you're not a walker, if you I'm going to take a long drive to the coast or the mountains. And driving can be meditative. Okay. Hikes, guided meditations, tapping. These are all things I do. I do hypnosis with clients sometimes to really relax them into a zone of calmness. So there's things you can do with dealing with the nerve part of missing someone post breakup. Number 10, don't be afraid to be alone. Prepare yourself for this for a little bit. If they've been manipulative, you might be surprised. If you break up with someone that there's been a lot of fighting and there's been a lot of manipulation and a lot of guilt nets and a lot of character assassination and assaults, sometimes when you break up with them, obviously they're going to have a lot of issues because they're more desperate and dependent on you. But you might feel like, I feel good. Like, this is good. Like, actually, and I've had this one time in one breakup where the individual, she left. We were arguing, we were on and off again. This was years back. And I remember once she left, I went, oh, this feels good. There was no pain involved. It was relief because I was just tired of the arguments and uh, the stuff that wasn't true, the accusations. It was just a toxic relationship. And so sometimes once you break that and you get that person out of your sphere of influence, out of your house, out of your view, in a week or two, you can still feel sorry for them and miss them, but you might even feel like, oh my God, I can breathe. So give yourself that time, that space for that possibility. Okay. So these are all things you can do in planning for a breakup, and I'll review them again at the end of this video. All right. So I'm going to get into the story pretty soon. Um, we've got Jesse on deck. How you doing, Jesse? I'm going to review before we get started on the story really quick. How to plan your breakup. Number one, know your reasons for breaking up. I'd say write out your relationship story and then you can read it as a stranger to yourself. Number two, don't ask too many people for advice on this. One or two trusted individuals. Good time to talk to a coach versus post breakup. So a lot of people do, oh, I'm going to talk to someone after I break up. It's a really good time right before you're thinking about it to talk to a coach like myself. Number three, know your living situation post breakup. This is big. So if you are dependent on the other individual or they are dependent on you, this will involve how you plan to break up because it's going to be a big issue. So if that person needs time to move out, consider that. If that person needs a certain amount of money to move out, consider that. If you need time, consider that. But this is going to be one of your biggest hurdles to plan for, is where you're going to live or they're going to live. Number four, plan a trip or even move soon after the breakup to catch your breath. So if you can go on a 3-month sabbatical to somewhere, that'd be great. If you could move to another state, that'd be great. If you can't do this, like I say later on, maybe you can stay with a family member for a little while just to catch your breath. Okay. Number five, if your current partner is a pity seeker, stay in no contact. Stay away from guilt nets. They know your buttons. They're really going to try to make you feel bad. And anyone that tries to make you just feel bad about yourself or the breakup, rather than talk about the problems, the issues, the accountability, that's not someone you want to get back with right away because they're not really seeing the problems. What they're looking for is just immediate ways to get your attention and get back together rather than work on the issues, if the issues can be worked on. And if you reward the pity seeking, they'll do it again. Be ready for any character attacks once you break up. You don't have to explain yourself again day after day. 7, if they threaten to never talk to you again, say no problem. That's okay. I'll be okay. And if you ever want to call me, you can. If you can't plan a trip or move, feel free to stay with someone close to you for the first few weeks, friend, family, coworker. Number 9, get a meditative practice, church, solo walks, long drives, hikes, guided meditations, EFT tapping. These are all things that I can talk to you about, but these are resources you have. Get number 10, don't be afraid to be alone for a little bit. If they've been manipulative, you might be surprised to feel relieved. So if you're in this one, if you're planning a breakup, you have your reasons, you're like, oh my God, it's going to be so hard. Don't be surprised if it's been a really bad relationship that you might feel good, especially if you're the one that wants to break up. Okay. Ben, I feel the same way. And I don't have access to that music right now at all. It's on my mixer somewhere else. But I was thinking, It puts things in perspective to have a little background music, huh? All right, Ben, this is a good story. You might be the only one on deck. I was in an unannounced live stream today, but I have an audience of one is enough, right? All right, so story on deck. So I'm not breaking up yet. I feel like it's been brewing for months. I'm 29 and he's 27. We've been together for over 3 years. We started out good, but it was a turbulent time in my life. I had lost my sister about 6 months prior, and I had just broken up with my boyfriend of 6 years. Okay. So just know that when you look back at that turbulent time, that's a really sensitive time. Um, that you're going to be susceptible to want to fill that void of not having, especially if you're living alone, losing a loved one, losing someone. Anytime you're out of a relationship of 6, 7, 8 years, 5 years, it's going to be really tough. There's a lot of smoke to clear from that. And a lot of people are susceptible to getting into a new relationship with someone that they find better in certain areas, but over time, it might not work out. And that's okay. Don't settle. And we were seeing each other after our breakup. Okay. And that 6 year boyfriend, we were seeing each other after our breakup. And when I started dating again, he wanted me back, but I was done. So this current boyfriend was much better looking. Well, that's an upgrade for you. Attraction counts. More laid back. He's an artist, which I like, and he's much more spiritual. These were all things my ex wasn't. So I really like this guy. So this is a classic case of an opposite where you are going to amplify the qualities of the new partner or the new boyfriend or girlfriend because the other person you're with had none of these qualities. So it's kind of like water in the desert. You value water in the desert because it's more scarce. So these qualities that this guy had sometimes could camouflage some of their bad qualities because everyone does have some bad qualities. So you mentioning that is very mindful. So again, I was extra attracted to him too. So he said that twice. So there you go. So soon enough, he moved in with me. But one thing I noticed was that he never paid for things. I'm one of those people that always just gets the bill for friends and family. But I noticed this guy never got the bill. And even when he moved in, it was hard to get his portion of the rent. All right. So how things start or is how they transpire. So you looking back, and this is why it's so good to write out your story. If this is still an issue, this is just who this person is. It's not something that just happened. The fact that you are someone that goes out of your way or just naturally gets the bill all the time, as long as that's your pleasure to do so and you have enough money to cover it, you're rich, you're wealthy, or at the time you had a lot of extra money, it's fine. If it bothers you, then that'll grow resentment. Okay. The problem with that is that other person is becoming dependent on you. It's okay if someone doesn't pay all the time, but at the same time never pays. That's a huge red flag, whether it's a man or a woman. Um, there's a thing where men usually are supposed to pay for dates. I'm fine with that. Totally fine with that. The idea that someone just never ever wants to buy anything for the other person, it's a bit extreme, right? The fact that he doesn't come up with his portion of the rent is a big one. That means this individual is not responsible. Okay. So financially, we had issues from the beginning, but I never made it an issue. So what I would just tell you in the beginning there, if separate your financial issues from his. So if you're a bad spender or you're bad with money, you probably shouldn't be with someone that's a bad spender or bad with money. But at the same time, it's not all his fault. And this is why some people are more compatible. Okay. It sounds like you're not broke, but if you're with someone like this that's irresponsible with money, it's a double whammy if you both are, right? So financially, we had issues from the beginning. Never we moved in with my grandparents, whom were welcoming and kind. Then he got in a major car accident while overtaking another car on a 2-lane highway. All right. So if you're overtaking a car on a 2-lane highway, that's a dangerous act. Have I done it before? Yes, but you're more susceptible to getting in an accident, sure. He literally flipped the car in a ditch and he was lucky he was okay. He often brings up how he almost died and even brought it up as a 1 year anniversary. Sorry to laugh. He completely blamed the other driver, but I know he was under the influence of weed and he could at times drive aggressive. So bottom line is you don't know whose fault it was. You weren't in the car, you weren't in the situation. And what are you going to do? Right? So the fact that he drives aggressive and was under the influence of weed, but you let him drive your car, this is what can happen. Okay. The thing about the car was it was my car and I didn't have insurance and the car was worth about $13,000. That's your responsibility. So if you're bitter about that, you need to get insurance for your car. You need to be cognizant of who's driving your car. Um, and the fact that that happened. Now, on his end, it would be interesting to see how he felt responsible or accountable for it. So, I didn't expect him to pay for the car in full, but he never even got his own car after. Instead, he brought his car to my grandparents' house, which didn't run well, left it in the driveway for a year, not running. My grandparents are nice people and they kindly asked multiple times to sell the car, get it moved. I eventually had to donate the car. I had to call the tow truck. So, right there, these are small things that add up. Not only is this individual not buying a new car for himself, okay, he's leaving it in your grandparents' driveway. Then he's having you deal with your grandparents in between. This is complete lack of accountability and responsibility. So I'm not surprised he didn't replace your car or give you money for the car he wrecked. It sounds like someone that, doesn't take accountability. So it was all the other driver's fault, right? And sell the car, get it moved. Okay, so lost my place or his primary car again. He's currently been so I eventually had to donate the car and had to call the tow truck. The fact that you had to donate the car and call the tow truck, he's probably going to blame that on you later on too. That's his responsibility. He's currently been using my car that I bought as his primary car, and again, there's been no insurance on this one. He hasn't offered to pay that either. It's your responsibility to ask him to pay for that insurance. It's also your responsibility that you let him take a second car unpaid for that's yours and use it as his primary car. So, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. You got to ask yourself, are you comfortable letting him use this car? Is he bettering himself? Is he becoming a better person? Is he getting a better job? Is he going to school? Whatever it is. Or is he just kind of going through the motions and just had someone else do something for him? Um, so there's no insurance and he hasn't offered. I mean, if he's going to drive the car, he should pay for the insurance. If you have payments on that car, you should make the payments. If you guys are partners, if you guys are together and living together, bottom line. At years ago, I was in a situation where we shared a car, my girlfriend and I always paid the payments because I used the car more. I made more money also. So um, he pays no rent to my grandparents. So that's kind of on your grandparents if they want to ask for that or not. It's their house. Um, That being said, if he's comfortable in that situation at 27 years old and he feels good about that, that's a problem. He shouldn't feel like, "Oh, this is a great situation to be in that someone else is paying for my house and all that." He should feel like, "I gotta get out of here. I'm an adult." It should be with some kind of finish line, like I said. He's finishing school or he's got some kind of training to get through. There's gotta be a reason why he's getting that free rent, but he's bettering himself in the process. If he's just there, just comfortable, you'll never get him out of there because he's just grooved into that. And your grandparents have to do something to say something about that. Unfortunately for you, you're in the middle and you're probably saying something to him. My grandmother has asked him to give her $160 a month for utilities, and he often has to be reminded and sometimes doesn't pay. Again, a responsibility and accountability. This isn't an individual that you're going to want to marry or have kids with, unfortunately. I mean, that seems harsh, but at 27 years old, just sounds incredibly irresponsible and careless. On top of all these money issues, which I let go, he's extremely jealous and often accuses me of emotional cheating. So, what's really interesting here is you got an extreme case of um, financial issues, right? That have happened since the beginning of the relationship, an extreme case of a lack of accountability and responsibility. And by the way, this is what teenagers do. They lack responsibility and accountability. They're relying on other people. They're finding their way in life, right? This person's in their late 20s like this. uh, this relationship won't change. You're an enabler. Yes, he's not a drug addict or an alcoholic, but you're enabling him to live this way, which is basically like a teenager where everyone takes care of you. Um, so now you're saying beyond the lack of responsibility and the money issues, that he also is highly jealous and often accuses you of emotional cheating. So someone like this that doesn't make any money or doesn't make money, that isn't responsible, is living off someone's grandparents, isn't highly attractive in the dating ring once he gets to 30. Okay. So this is where it gets real, real quick, right? Is the fact that in your early 20s, 18, 19, 20, you can just get away with kind of being a struggling individual, just getting by, and you could just be attractive, right? You could be good looking, you can have a cool style. When you get to like late 20s, early 30s, in most societies, especially a woman seeking a man, it's like, what kind of job do you have? What kind of income do you have? Does it mean you have to be rich? No. Self-sustainable? Yeah, that's a start, right? There's a lot of people that wouldn't even put up with having this kind of a guy in their house. Um, so on top of all that, the reason why he's aggressively jealous and accuses you of things, because subconsciously he knows hypergamy. So hypergamy means a woman's always going to go for equal or higher value. Now, if you're an attractive woman or you have something going for you, over time you kind of go, wow, this isn't going to be the guy for me. He can't even take care of his bills. He's living off my grandparents. I don't think this is sustainable. Subconsciously, you're not saying that, but you know it. He knows it too. So whenever he sees you around other men that are responsible, financially well off, or better off than him, he's going to act out because he knows he's not up to that par. Okay. He's very passive aggressive, but over the last few months, he's been making more mean comments regarding that if I broke up with him, he just feels like I would get ran through by a bunch of guys. So accusations like that about your character are very toxic, but not only that, if you start to defend them, you'll start to believe that they're true, and you'll also start to feel bad about yourself. It's a dirty way to play. It's desperate on his end. And if he really feels that way, then he should break up with you and have some self respect. If he's staying in the relationship while throwing those kind of darts, it's pathetic. I'll admit, before I met him, I had a time where I was partying a lot and was more promiscuous. I feel like when I told him the truth about this time of my life, that he now uses it against me. Well, bottom line, if you're in your late 20s and you're a human being, there's probably been a time in your life where you partied or you were a little more promiscuous. It's possible. And people from their teen years to their early 20s are allowed to change. The idea that he's using this as cannon fodder to put you on the spot about a time in your life that was much earlier that you kind of shared with him, and now accusing you of being someone that's going to be ran through. Do not defend that. The minute you defend that, you put some truth on it. It's really good you wrote this out, because these kind of individuals, if you stay with them in your late 20s and all the way in your early 30s, you'll become more meek, you'll lose your spirit, you'll feel bad about yourself. And this guy's just not going anywhere. I'll admit, before I met him, all right, sorry. It's almost like I'm defending myself about being something I'm not. I haven't cheated on him, excuse me. I haven't cheated on him, and I know he doesn't do that. But he even wonders why I don't ever get jealous. Well, I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot going for him, it sounds like. I don't know what his job is, but the fact that his irresponsibility, I don't think you're worried that someone's going to swoop him up. And by the way, who's going to swoop up someone that they need to take care of like a child? Now it's getting to a point where I'm exhausted by his accusations, which are making me feel like I'm this bad person, and I'm not. Say that's a definitive statement that you can go back and underline. He's saying things about you that make you feel bad or ill about yourself, and you're saying they're not true. Get out of this relationship, because what it's doing is it's clouding your confidence, and he's winning The reason why he wants to cloud your confidence is so he can control you. The reason why he wants to control you is because he's dependent on you. The reason he's dependent on you, he's desperate. He's not self-sustainable or self-efficient. He doesn't rely on himself. He relies on others. This is not a guy you want to be with long term. It's been 3 years. He's shown you who he is. Don't continue on. Don't. Because you'll be 35 years old and you'll want to break up then. You'll be miserable and you go, oh, this guy just wasted my time. He likes to smoke weed and play video games in his spare time. He can also be a hermit and a loner. So, I mean, these are your words. These aren't things that would be highly attractive on a dating profile for a man in his late 20s, but there are other people out there that like to play video games and date and smoke some herb. So it's not impossible. If that's not for you at this point in your life, don't stay because she says, I'm social and I have a lot. I like to have some drinks with friends sometimes. I know it doesn't work. So here, I know it doesn't work, but I feel bad. So you've said I feel bad multiple times about what you really feel. That's a problem. It's incongruent. When you have incongruence in a relationship, you start to question who you are, if I'm a good person, this, that, and the other, and you lose track of who you are. You lose track of what you like about yourself. In turn, you lose self-respect and confidence. Okay. It's really good you wrote this out because what he's doing is he's just manipulating you because he'll drop some line like he just wants to die or that he feels like I don't listen to him enough. So anytime someone says something about dying, it's a trigger point, and we all have to take that kind of seriously. But at the same time, a lot of people have had moments where they think about that, right? People that use that in relationships, it's cheap a lot of times. They're not going to do it all the time. Like I said, you got to be aware of it and honor it, but it's also holding you to the most extreme thing because they're desperate. And being with desperate people is really exhausting. Um, and the reason he feels like that way is he's not relying on himself. He needs you, and it can be uncomfortable. You're an adult. You're in your late 20s. I feel bad because he'll drop some line that you just okay, or that I don't listen to him enough. I don't feel like I'm doing anything that bad. You've said that numerous times. Then he'll threaten to break up with me if I'm out with friends. He's done this numerous times and even involves my grandmother. Okay, so this is enough. So like people like this, okay, just to be aware, they're just going for anything that'll get your attention. So at this point, breaking up with you, if you're ever in a relationship where someone regularly threatens to break up but doesn't do it, what they're doing is they're just trying to win. And if that works, they'll just keep doing it again. Anytime they're in a situation they don't like, or they're not winning, or the negotiation of the relationship's not going right, they'll just drop that down on you. And then you suddenly give in, you say sorry, and you let them win. They'll do it over and over again. Now, if you're in that situation, stop doing that and just go, okay, you want to break up with me? You told me many times, move out. And then it'll get real. The problem is with people like this, they won't move. They won't go. They'll find some reason in the morning, like, you know what, I forgive you, this and that, because they don't have a place to go because they've been so reliant on you. And this is why it's dangerous when you're in relationships. Not dangerous, but really difficult to get stuck with someone that's reliant on you financially or for your home. And these are situations when you look at it, if the person wasn't living with you, you probably would have already broke up with them. The fact that he involves your grandmother is just low character. Um, he now goes to her for counsel recently. So he's going to her for counsel. I'm sure your grandmother sounds like a good person. And maybe he thinks he's doing right, but he's making your grandma a double agent. And it's just a bad look as a 27-year-old man that you're in this living situation and then you're going to the grandma for counsel. Okay. You got to take care of your own problems. And if you're really unhappy with your girlfriend and you're living in your parents' house or your girlfriend's relative's house, you need to move out. If you're going to make that public to everyone in the house, everyone's going to think you're an asshole because they're going to be biased towards the person that's their family member. It's not mindful. It's careless. It's selfish. Recently, and your grandmother probably has to throw him out eventually. She doesn't want to do that because she probably wants to respect the fact that it's your boyfriend. So you need to step up in this situation. Recently, a close cousin of mine who comes over a lot and witnessed his actions, whose opinion I trust, has told me, I got to get out of this. This guy's manipulating me with guilt and taking jabs at my identity. Well, I would agree with your cousin. What they mean about taking jabs about your identity is that you keep saying, "I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad person." It's like, who stole the cookie from the cookie jar, right? The first person that goes, "Oh, I didn't steal it," that's the person that's guilty. It's like you're entertaining the fact that you're this bad person, and you're not. So he's already got your attention on that, right? And you have to prove that you're this good person to him. In reality, what he's doing is he's making you weaker in how you feel about yourself so he can control you, and he can control the narrative and the situation. So he has his place, he has his car, he's comfortable, he doesn't have to pay any rent. There's other things he's gaining from this relationship. She thinks he might be borderline personality disorder or just a narcissist that uses pity and guilt to get his way. Well, I don't know if it's borderline personality disorder. There are some things here. I'm not an expert on that. Especially one of the biggest ones is when people borderline personality disorder, they're big on abandonment. They panic on abandonment. It's like being with someone with multiple personalities. So around certain groups of friends or people, they'll act like the greatest thing on earth, and then and behind closed doors there'll be a devil monster type person. They change really quick. They also um, usually have addictions, and they usually commonly threaten to break up often. So those could be some of the things that are associated with that. I wouldn't go as far to say it. The fact that it's a narcissist that uses pity or guilt to get his way, that is a tactic that a narcissistic person will use. And it's funny because it's very cunning. It's very cunning for someone to use um, pity, right? As a form, because you think of a narcissist being some kind of strong, bold, confident person, but it's just a front a lot of times because they don't have confidence. So it's quite possible, yeah, the narcissist that uses pity and guilt, absolutely possible. I'm not sure, but her insights feel true. Well, I mean, if this is someone that has a counseling background, you respect, and they've witnessed it. So what's different is you didn't just tell them a text or a story. They've been around this guy and they've actually seen how he acts or saw how he acts, and is giving you feedback based on real interactions rather than you telling them. We recently just had a big fight because I was going to my work's Christmas party and he didn't want to go because he doesn't like any of my friends and doesn't like me drinking with anyone else. That's a huge red flag. Okay, in any relationship, it's control. It's and you are saying, well, my friends aren't so bad, so you're defending that. He's got you. He's now controlling. And you go, "Oh, my friend's not that bad. Oh, I don't drink that much." The reality is you decide if you drink too much. You decide if your friends are bad. Now, if he's an individual that's very accepting to friends or 50-50, um, then you might be like, "Oh," or your cousin was like, "Oh, this particular friend I don't like, but majority of the people your cousin gives the majority of the doubt." Consider the source. Always consider the source. These accusations that you're defending to him because you live together, um, if they're not true to you, stop defending them. If these people are good friends to you and you feel like you don't drink too much, then you don't need to go on about this. Now, you know, I don't know you. You could have a drinking problem, but from what you're telling me, that drinking problem is, if it is, it's separate from the way he's actually treating you. And if he had self-respect and self-reliance, he wouldn't put up with someone that drank too much. But you're just saying here he just doesn't like you drinking with anyone else. I mean, this is ridiculous. So that night I went, let me just reread this. I was going to my work's Christmas party and he didn't want to go. He didn't want me to go. He didn't want to go with me because he doesn't like any of my friends. He doesn't like me drinking with anyone else. So that night I went, he threw a tantrum and even made his ill feelings evident to everyone in the house. This is complete carelessness that your grandparents have to deal with his feelings. Get him out. He then went to my cousin to complain about not knowing what to do and that he thinks I want a different type of guy. Of course, it's you. There's no accountability on his end. He cried and took no accountability. My cousin told him he needed to move out, gain some self respect, stop living with my grandparents, and that he needed to struggle a bit and challenge himself. Great advice. Great advice. If I had to give him advice, I'd be like, look, you need to move out. Like, you're living with your girlfriend's grandparents. You can do that for a little while, but long term, no. Free, no. So I agreed saying we could still see each other, but that I didn't want to move out with him. The fact that you didn't want to move out with him, you're basically saying, yeah, I would like to break up. But I don't want to take it there because I don't want to hurt you too much. And because if you really wanted to be with him, you'd move out with him. And you know what? When he moves out, I wouldn't recommend you move with him. His response was sad at first. Then he started getting excited about getting his own place. But then he said he'll have to wait till March when he gets his tax returns, which is 6 or 7 weeks away. And he only wants to live in the nicest area of town, which is expensive. Wow. So think about this. You got an individual that has money issues, that's always had money issues in the 3-year relationship, is living off your grandparents' house, and then is having trouble. I believe you said $160 for utilities, is having trouble paying that. But when he moves out, he wants to be in the most expensive area. Right. Right. So what's going to happen is, this is my prediction, is he's going to drag this out. It's not about waiting for tax season. He's going to drag this out and try to get you back in his zone and forget about moving him out. He's going to push back. He's going to push it back a few more months. The fact that he's not willing to just move out to a place that he can afford, he wants to save up for it. This is just a very selfish person that's not mindful of everyone else in the house or his actions. It's ridiculous. Um, and he only wants to live in the nicest area of town, which is expensive. Mind you, he doesn't have his own car. He hasn't been able to give my grandmother $160 every month. I mean, this is just embarrassing when you think about it. Oh, I'm going to move to the most expensive area. I'm going to save up for that, but I haven't been giving my $160 a month. Give me a break. My cousin has offered to give him the money up front that he'll get from taxes so he can start his search and get out of there. I would venture to say he might take the money if it was a high enough amount and then complain about it. That's the type of person this is. They would take the money and then they would tell you like, "Oh, they just wanted to get rid of me." They'd turn it into a guilt situation, right? Or how to feel sorry for them. Your cousin's just saying this guy's never going to move because she could see it, right? The question I would have is like, how much does he want to move? Like, what is he expecting from his tax return, and how much is she actually offering? And is she willing to not see that money again? Sounds like your cousin, from her up close and personal view, this guy, it's funny because it doesn't sound like he's bad news, right? He doesn't have an alcohol or a drug problem. You're highly attracted to him. Like you said, he was spiritual before and some other things. But then when you write this story out, I'm sure you're leaving out other stories in the last 3 years. You can kind of see very clearly this isn't good. And you're gonna have to be the bad guy at some point. That's what you're avoiding. Oh, I'm not a bad person. I'm not. In this particular case, you're gonna be accused of being a bad person when you get him out of there. But the reality is, I tell you what, you're gonna feel relieved. My cousin, whom has a background in counseling, told me a guy like this will just keep blaming and finding ways to make you feel sorry for him or about yourself. There you go. I agree. That's good advice. Whatever works, because not only is he in love with you in a toxic way. Okay, so your cousin's saying this. Whatever works, make you feel bad about yourself. Whatever works, because not only is he in love with you in a toxic way, but he also depends on you for a free room and board and a car. So he's got a lot to lose. This having to wait till tax season is his way of buying time to get you back taking care of him. I agree. I mean, if let's look at it like this way. Let's say you got a responsible, confident individual that's your partner. In your particular case, your boyfriend. Let's say that this guy has confidence, responsibility, accountability. Let's just say that he has double what he has now. The minute you say, I don't want to, like, you guys have a fight and you're like, look, I think it might be best that you move out. And you're like, I don't want to move out with you. He should go, shit, I better get my own place. Not because he's going to give in to you, but like, I'm going to sit here for the next 6 or 7 weeks knowing that you don't want to move out with me and I have to move out on my own. So I'm going to go on a pity parade for the next 6 weeks to get everyone's attention, not only yours, but the grandparents, who he's already put work on your grandmother. Right. So in the next 6 or 7 weeks, he's going to have little modes where he's going to try to like play that card too. Get him out of there as soon as possible. And I would even add, like, you could, if you have extra money or someone does, give it to him to get out of there. Cause I don't think when tax season comes, he'll have another excuse, especially if he wants to live in the most expensive place. Um, uh, Buying time to get taken care of him. The only way he'll change is by getting, so this is your cousin says, the only way he'll change is by getting on his own and building up some adult confidence. Yes, yes, yes. She also said he's in desperate need of some wounded child therapy. I don't know him well enough for that. He sounds highly immature, selfish, and has some teenage tendencies in his thinking. So maybe that's true. Um, you're not his therapist. Don't try to be. Okay. And in the end, I'm just tired of trying to cheer him up or overcome his mean accusations that I'm out to meet other guys. Then just stop, because every time you engage in that, you make it true and you feel bad about yourself. My cousin says if he moves out, I'll be relieved and feel good. I'll say this: I can't guarantee that, but I would say there's a strong possibility. She said she had a similar relationship, but once you get space from someone like that, you feel like you can breathe again and stop answering to someone you don't really respect. Ooh, that's a deep comment. You don't know till you get space that they just have a way of manipulating the situation. I'm wondering, as a breakup coach, and I'm considering breaking up, but I don't want, I'm wondering, as a breakup coach, I guess this is a typo. I'm considering breaking up, but I don't want to hurt him. And he's so sensitive. What do you think I should do? Well, earlier in this show, I talked about plans of breaking up. I would say one of the plans would be, um, you've already basically told him whether he wants to be in touch with reality that you kind of want to break up when you said, I don't want to move out with you, but I want you to move out, but I'll still see you. That's you not saying, like, you're basically saying we're taking 2 steps back from our current relationship. You're saying, like, "Oh, if you could change and you can get financially more stable, maybe I'll get with you," but you're basically kind of breaking up with him. Now, what I would say to that, because as soon as he breaks up, he's gonna say mean things and he's gonna look for pity. I would say, take a trip, go somewhere, stay with a family member, but you're already staying with family members. If you have the money to take a trip for a month, 3 weeks, go on a retreat, just get away from that toxic way to catch your breath, so that you can feel like you can make a decision not based on being reactive to what he's doing. He knows you. He knows what buttons to push. He knows how to make you feel sorry for him, right? You're constantly saying, I'm not a bad person. I'm not. Go somewhere where people aren't accusing you of being a bad person. Go somewhere where no one knows your name for a little bit. Go somewhere where people are supportive of you and kind to you and care about you. They're not liars. And see what it's like to be in those environments and be away from him. Does that make sense? And like I said, it could be a trip. It could be staying with one of your aunts for a little while. It could be a 1 week trip. It could be a 1 month trip. Or if you want to go all out, move. You're living with your grandparents right now. Maybe you want to plan to move in a month or 2 months somewhere different, not with him. I would definitely not move in with him, because you're just making what you're going to end up paying that rent all the time. And it just doesn't seem like you're happy. And that's what he's going to be maneuvering for. Um, and if you don't get him out soon, like I said, he's going to create a situation or a story where he can stay longer. He's already done it. Oh, I got to wait for taxes. It's like, you can't borrow that money from anywhere else. Um, and your cousin offered it, if your cousin has the money and they offered it, he should take that and move out. You should encourage him to do so. Just make sure your cousin, it's their pleasure to do so, and they have the ability to not get that money back. My cousin says that these next 6 weeks before he gets his taxes, he's going to be looking for other ways to manipulate me into feeling sorry for him and letting him stay longer and also taking my car. I agree with your cousin. Honestly, I might just give him the car if he leaves. I don't have a problem if he leaves. If you want to give him the car's not highly valuable or expensive, and it's a way to get him out of the house, and it's your pleasure to do so, and it alleviates you from this person, go ahead. I don't have a problem with it. If you want to keep the car, then stand by that. But if he's gonna use that as a reason why you can't move out, then it's just handcuffing you with the rest of your life. You can't stay with this guy. Even though I know this relationship is bad, why can't I just move on or let go? Well, your feelings are involved. You've been with this person for 3 years. He's trained you to feel sorry for him. You have love. You guys slept in the same room for a long time. So there's just a built-in love there. It's difficult. And you're not going to be able to just let it go. But the idea that you're gonna allow yourself the space and time to realize, wow, I don't want to do this forever. You got to give yourself that space and time, man, because you're 28, 29 years old. This is real talk. This is your golden years to meet a good partner, a man that that you respect, someone that treats you well, someone that doesn't make you feel bad like you're a bad person, doesn't bring up past stuff. This isn't a healthy relationship for anyone. You're just putting out fires over and over again. When you're in a really good relationship, someone should support you in what you do and how you are. You can have fights, you can have arguments, you can have disagreements, you can have situations where you went out drinking with your friends. You mentioned drinking, and and your partner gets angry at you and says you stayed out too late. Fine, you have a fight about that. You can have situations where they get jealous. Fine, you can have a fight or an argument about it. This is much, much more deeper and layered. This individual is not self-reliant and living off your family free in his late 20s with no sign of changing. People like this, they get really comfortable, okay? Because human beings want to be safe. They want to be comfortable. When they groove into a situation, and this is why people take jobs that they don't really like but have really good benefits and they don't have to work hard. And then 20 years later, they're like, oh, it was an all right job, but it wasn't my passion. I wasn't really into it. It's fine because you were comfortable, right? They gave you a certain amount of money every month. You didn't have to hurt yourself in the job. That's why relationships are the same. You're in a situation right now where it's just not bad enough to like push you out. But when you're in a relationship where people use pity, manipulation, or to put you down, you got to take steps out of that because you're literally in like this psychological war where you're defending yourself about something that's not true. But what it does is it alters your reality in a way that you start to think, is it true? Am I a bad person? And they got you. They got you. And you got to, these are the kind of relationships, however you plan to get out of them, you got to get out of them because these people just want to control you. And they're camouflage crazies is what I call it. This individual is emotional. They're not self-reliant. They're not responsible. They're not financially there. They're desperate. These kinds of people, it's fool's gold. And a lot of times, the only thing that they got going is they're maybe fairly attractive. I would bet that this individual probably works out a lot, cares about their appearance, cares what people think, because underneath that, there's not much substance. There's not much adulthood or responsibility. So they got to hide that. They got to rely on you. And instead of bettering themselves or moving up the ladder, they just want to hang on to you. And they're playing not to lose. If you're with someone playing not to lose, a lot of desperation there. All right, we got 4 or 5 on deck. I haven't been on deck in a while. It's a different time than usual, but thanks for those that listened. Any kind of opinions on that story, if you listen to the whole story, go ahead and throw them in the comments. It's one of those things too. It's like, honestly, a lot of people come for breakups, but when you're preparing for a breakup or you're preparing to maybe break up, this is one of the best times to talk to me. It really is because you're scared. You're also knowing that it's the right thing to do a lot of times when it's your end. And if you feel that for a long period of time, let's say for 3 months, 6 months, you're off and on about breaking up, it's inevitable then. You're just maybe getting some good intimacy in between. Maybe you had one good day or three good days. But if you're ever in a relationship with a partner that constantly makes everything about them and not being satisfied with who you are and accusing you of things you didn't do, get out and use those tactics I mentioned earlier. All right, Rye Flint, Poultry Flowers, Sabina BW, also known as Ben W, Jesse Chapman, always a pleasure, one of my favorites. Um, I'll be getting back into the live streams these next couple weeks. I did have to overcome a few illnesses in late December. Got some poison oak that took me off the airwaves and had a cold, had a variety of things. But I'm back on deck, feeling great, feeling good, back in California, ready to roll. So if anyone has a story they want to send in, go to writemac.com. If anyone has a topic that they want me to touch base on really quick, go ahead and throw it in the comments. If you don't, maybe I'll just wrap this thing up. And anyone that's on deck right now too, let's just talk about this. Like, have you ever been in one of these kind of relationships where you feel pity for the other person? And that's what's keeping you? Is that is that something that's happened to you before? Or they're relying on you? You want me to talk about LDRs or in what context, Paltry Flowers? LDRs can create a lot of guilt because what happens with an LDR, which is highly underrated, I've talked about this many times before, is the person that has the better situation rules kind of the relationship. So if I move to, I don't know, San Diego, which I haven't lived in years, but I lived there. Yeah, LDR is a real relationship. I was going to use a word I wouldn't want to use actually because that would be politically incorrect. An LDR is a real relationship, but you need a finish line. So that's how I'd put that. Like you would need, the sun's just, you would need to know like in a year or 6 months when we're going to, meet up again. You also need definitive once a month we meet up, twice a month. Now, if you have one of these ones where you don't meet up for a year, I don't know that you're getting into a grounds. You decide what a real relationship is. And now with FaceTime and all that stuff and sexting and, video play, which is very common. Maybe you define that. You're creating a lot of tension. Um, but I would say like you got to have the finish lines. Now, what happens is certain people get used to the long distance relationship and they stop trying for real ones. Okay. But the other thing I would add though, the big one is that, you know, what are the circumstances? Like when someone chooses a job over the long term, or that happens a lot. Someone has a job and the relationship's going really well. Let's say like, oh, it's been 6 months of bliss, but I got to take this job opportunity. The money's good, but it's in another country, in another time zone. That's tough, but you got to know when they're going to come back. And the other part is where they're moving going to be more temptatious for them to cheat? And someone's like, well, what do you mean about that? Well, someone moves to Miami, San Diego, LA, New York City versus moving to, I don't know, anywhere in Canada. Uh, um, there's just certain environments that are going to be more temptatious, if that's a word, to cheat or to stray. There's also going to be certain jobs, like if you're partner or your boyfriend or girlfriend's moving away and they're going to be a bartender somewhere else, I wouldn't trust that in a long distance relationship. There's certain jobs that people are more likely to cheat. So and then you got to take into account their character. So if they're a very devout person, they're very loyal, they're going to be more apt to be loyal in a long distance relationship. So those are things that factor in. You make your own rules and boundaries within them. Where I find that, man, the sun's coming right in right now, huh? Love this office. Love it. Looks like I work for Google, huh, behind me. The other part of these is where it starts to unravel is schedules. So if you're in different time zones, that's the start of the end of the LDR. So if you're in an LDR, you'll notice this that all of a sudden someone starts missing the 5 o'clock that you guys were supposed to meet up. Someone's cutting them short. So the meetings that you have online on video, um, people aren't making those, they're being late, and then that's when it unravels because the other person's like, wow, I've been looking forward to seeing you all day and you don't have time for me. What have you been doing? So long distance relationships, they're real relationships, they're just much more fragile. And you gotta be very patient and have finish lines. That's how I would put that. Anything else in closing? Oh, it's 1:11. 1:11, 1:02 p.m. here, but 1:11 on the live. Any topics you want me to touch on in the next few days? Anyone want to send in their story? No. Thank you to the individual that sent this story in because this was a very good one to unpack. Good to see you too, Sabina. The fabulous Rye Flint, Paltry Flowers, Sabina, BW, Jesse. Okay. We'll get a regular time. I think it's going to be once or twice a week. It won't be every day, but it'll be coming soon. Rye Flint, your birthday is coming up. How old are you going to be? 33? 32. Six on deck. Anyone once a week is great. Anyone have any topic you want me to touch on? My birthday too. Me and her have the same birthday. That's true. That's why I've always liked Rye Flint. We have a special birthday, number one, the first. $33. Wow, that's an angel number, Rye Flint. 33. Oh my God. Talk about marriage? Well, ask me a question, Angel. You got a question specifically about marriage? So if you haven't been on my channel before, I don't know. Angel Jimenez sounds familiar. Be specific. 33. Oh my goodness. We still haven't had a talk yet, Rye. We got to talk about some things. 33, that's a big age as a female. That's a big one. By the way, Rye Flint, I'm gonna send you an email about this. I didn't see if I had my email, your email, because my memory's so well. Angel, let me just mention this, and I'll answer your question. How do you know if you're ready to get married? You're asking someone that's never been married, but I can give you an answer. Um, Rye Flint, really quick. Remember, I was talking about the uh, cars getting energy from the road, getting recharged from the highways. That technology is already out. I remember you were like, I'm an engineer. I don't know anything about that. I'm going to send you some details about it. How you can charge your car. It's already out there, supposedly. We're going to have to talk about this. So Angel Jimenez, How do you know if you're ready to get married? So, number 1, I would say, what's your feeling? Define what you want from the marriage. So, what are you going to be getting from marriage? What's your expectations? I would also just say, if I gave you a short answer, make sure whoever you're marrying, your morals and values line up pretty good, because marriage is one of those things that is also linked by the morals and values adding up. That's why, like, if someone has a strong religion, when I say, or devout towards their religion, and you marry someone that's devout towards their religion, well, those are built-in morals and values you share. I'm not telling you whether that religion's good or bad. It just helps you guys define how you make decisions. So I would say a lot of times when you date, you, especially in your 20s, you are ruled by attraction, even if you don't admit it. Oh, she's got a great personality. Oh, this, that, and the other. But the attraction's big. When you get married, you want to make sure the compatibility is really good. You also want to make sure that your intimacy is good, I think, because there's so many marriages that sizzle out with that. So your compatibility is going to help you sustain. What do I mean by how you get along, how you see the world. You don't have to agree on everything, but I would say the biggest thing to stay away from in a marriage would probably be like an individual that was just mentioned earlier in the story that is emotionally unstable at a high level, meaning they can't handle lows very well. They lose control. They're highly emotional. Um, Women tend to be more emotional, but there's men like that out there. Those are people that, if you're in a marriage, they're going to always have to win, things like that. Now, I'd add to that, how do you know if you're ready to get married? I would add, to me, if you want to have kids, then that should go hand in hand. You would want your kids to have both parents present at all cost. So if you're thinking about kids, and the individual that you're thinking about marrying would be a good parent, would be one of the things I would add to that. I will do this as a topic for a future show. It's a good question. But like I said, full disclosure, at my age, I'm still not married. I'm open to it. I would definitely be open to having kids and getting married at this stage, but in my 30s, I was never in a hurry. Um, all right. Anyone else have any questions? As I get some vitamin D on my face from the window light. God, I miss the beach in Thailand, man. Miss the sun sometimes. Good to be back on deck on the live stream and see some of the regulars, though. Much appreciated. Oh, you want me to send you that information? Do you have my email? Let me see, because I think I looked it up before. I remember you saying, like, I don't see, that's the thing. You don't realize how big California is, because there's plenty of areas in California that's nowhere near a beach. The closest beach is like 5 hours from where I live. It's funny. Um, yeah. Um, right. Do me a favor and just shoot me an email when you get a chance, because I don't have your email, and then I'll send you that. I'll send you that. Um, I know you have IG. I like to email better sometimes. Uh, why I moved back to California? Well, it was a variety of reasons. Paltry flowers, parents, and I have a niece and nephew I'm quite close to, and I've been in Thailand for 13 years, so it's quite a long time. So taking a sabbatical here for a year will be fun. I found a great office and a great location that's close to uh, where my parents live. My parents are in their 70s now, so I want to spend a little time closer to home for this year. Also have some things I'm working towards business wise with with this particular channel, but also working a little further with Clean Mind Today. which is another channel that I have guided meditations on that I kind of let sit for the year, but I want to get back into. Um, and also having a private office now where I can see clients is going to be exciting. So it's not all going to be remote. I've already had live in-person clients in my office, and that's been really fun and exciting. And it's not just breakup coaching. We do hypnosis, EFT. So I just want to widen what I'm doing, even though I've built this channel on breakups and talking about that. And I'm happy to still do that. Just want to broaden the horizons a little bit and do more things. Thanks, Sabina. I appreciate that. One of the things that's frustrated me about that channel is that YouTube, if you don't buy the ad free, which maybe you do, Sabina, the to not get ads, they put their own ads on there, and then it's a meditation channel, so they ruin the ads. So currently, when the channel is trying to get off the ground, um, YouTube's put in 2 or 3 ads that I can't take down. So I'm just a little frustrated about that. So I'm working towards something new and creating a website called Clean Mind Today, which I bought the domain. And for $5 a month, I'm going to provide my own guided meditation channels with some EFT, breathing techniques, maybe a couple other people that do what I do, and just have it be a boutique channel where you don't have to deal with the ads or going through YouTube. Right now, I feel like a lot of these conglomerate companies, I don't even know if I can say it because they might cancel it. Everyone's just adding more ads. Have you guys noticed that? Websites, um, everyone's getting more ads. So the idea that you can go to one website and you don't get inundated with ads or things to buy, because I feel like when you're going to do a guided meditation, let's say you go to YouTube and you search, in that search, you're still going to get racy stuff that throws your mind off, or you're going to get someone with their shirt off, or something about Trump, or something to trigger you. There's a lot of things to trigger you to get out of that mode. Whereas if you just have a clean minded website that's extremely simplistic, easy to use, and nothing but clean, calm content, you won't get distracted by what they're trying to sell you or trigger you by. Does that make sense? Um, and right now, I think that YouTube and Instagram a lot, like it's just getting like to get your attention is so over the top. Yeah, I guess is the word. So doing a lot of different things with that. But Paltry Flowers, where are you in the world? Are you in England, if I remember correctly? I'm one of those. In a year, I'll readdress my finish line will be in a year, and I'll see if I want to go back to Thailand. I have a house there, or if I want to travel somewhere else, or if I want to stay here another year. It's kind of funny the way I've been, being that I didn't have a marriage and kids. Um, People often ask, "Well, how long are you going to stay for?" Or what are you going to like? What's your? Sometimes I just make a 1 year plan and then see. New England. Wow. As in near Boston, as in New England Patriots, huh? If you're a Patriots fan, Tom Brady's actually from my hometown of San Mateo. It's not where I live now, though. All righty. Yeah, I'm in Northern California. So Northern California is colder, um, gloomier a little bit, but the summer will be really hot. But it'll be good to just be back for a whole year. Maybe I'll do a live stream or show you some things about where I'm at now. Thing is, too, when you move, even if you don't like where you move or you don't like some things, it just makes you value where you were before more. Moving is really good for you, in my viewpoint. It resets the clock. It gets you out of some bad habits sometimes. You discover some new things. You make some new friends. It's refreshing. It's good for you. It's good for the soul, in my opinion. I'm highly social, so that helps. But all right, folks, this has been good. It's been grand. I'm glad to be back. This was a positive experience. I think when I first came on the live stream, there was one or two people because it was unannounced. But we'll get this back on deck where I come on at a certain time. Um, I've been doing a little bit more shorts. I've got a really good video editor for the first time. So we'll see how that goes. Check those out if you like. On Instagram, I've been posting a few of these reels that were made that I think turned out pretty good. I don't know how long I'll be doing those for, but check out Clean Mind Today too if you'd like to check out what I'm doing with that channel. It's a work in progress with the website. And if anyone doesn't have a breakup, they want to talk to me about doing some hypnosis or emotional freedom technique about some limited beliefs you have, about your goals. I have a really good practice of something called I call cycling, where we maybe write out 20 things you want as goals. We write out the end point and we do a little visualization and we put it into put a music background to it. And then when you listen to it, it's like goal number one would be, let's just say I want to graduate Harvard, right? And hopefully you're going to Harvard or you're accepted. Then we would say, I'm on the podium accepting my diploma and it feels great. I've achieved another one of my visions. And then the next one would be, I bought my first house in Los Angeles, California. You want to be specific, on the beach. And I'm opening up my door and I'm saying, thank you. I've achieved another one of my visions. And the point of this is just to be really short with it, one after the other, with my voice being very calm and soothing in a meditative way. And then you can listen to this over and over again, and it's not so heavy, it's quick. So the cycling means like it's going to be this one, next, 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 next. So it's a way to manifest some things in a way that's not so esoteric or heavy. It's very quick. It's a reminder. And then over time, hopefully you start cycling through your mind and start getting what you want. I've used this in my own life and been pretty successful with it, and it works pretty nice. And it's not so, oh my God, like you need to do this heavy situation. It's very much towards, and when you do things like this, the thing about hypnosis and things like that, you can change so much, but you need to know specifically what you want. Right. And that's hard for some people because what you're doing now with YouTube and the internet is they're telling you what to want. And that's why I'm building Clean Mind Today, because I want some more websites out there that aren't telling you what you want or trying to sell you some things that aren't good for you. All right, folks, it's been good. It's been Grant. I said that twice, but it's curtains.